thanks, little helper. We've got Chrissy Smith. Is that your surname? That's good. Next, Emily.
Hi everybody, I'm Christina, adult IA. Ooh, hang on a minute. You need that help? And I just want to say wow, because yesterday, and I don't know how many in the room were here yesterday, I'm hoping everybody was an amazing day, not just for me, but for many people in the front here, and I know for you guys too. And I was awake for most of the night last night thinking, I can't just let this go. I can't let yesterday go without acknowledging how wonderful it was. And thank you so much to those who've organised, Greg and Bex and John, and Colin and Cassie. It's been incredible and very moving, incredible journey for us all, I think. And yeah, it's just amazing. So thank you for that. So I'm standing here today as a mother. I'm also a counsellor, a therapist, an author, an artist. I also have IA. I've got high IA. I've got 2 wombs, 2 vaginas. I have an extraclavicle rib, no coccyx, born with a tethered spinal cord, and what else? Finger-like thumbs too. Oh, 1 kidney, did I say that one? No. And I'm really lucky, and I'm very, very grateful too. Thank you. That's my book. It's a self-help book, and I wrote it to help people with mainly incontinence issues, but really I wanted to help anybody with hidden disabilities. Because at the end of the day, we all know what it's like to feel shame. We all know what it's like to feel embarrassment. We all know what it's like to be abandoned, emotionally, if not physically. And we do a lot of that, by the way, those of us with IA. Ooh. So I want to stand here, I want to give you a bit of my journey, my story, but mostly what I do want to do is inspire you and help you to see the positive side of our condition. And not just my condition, but everybody's condition. So I'll start at the beginning, and I will be referring to my notes because it was late last night when I changed everything, so forgive me. So, starting from the beginning, and I'm going to talk about the issues that really have affected me, but at the end I'm going to show you how I flipped it, and how you can flip it for yourself and your children. So, so born in 1968 in Bournemouth, rushed to Great Ormond Street Hospital. My mother and father didn't follow because my mum was poorly after the birth. I didn't see them for 2 weeks, and I was very fortunate because in 1968 records show that there were 8 children taken to Great Ormond Street with IA and other presenting abnormalities, but only 4 of us survived. And I was one of the lucky ones. So I think that was because at the time they didn't look for extra abnormalities when one person was born with one. So moving on, that was the beginning of the abandonment issue for me. At 18 months, I had the pull through at Great Ormond Street again. My parents, you've got to remember, in the 70s, Great Ormond Street didn't have the same attitude towards parents being with their children. It was very much, the children don't really need their parents there 100% of the time, and it's not going to give them a lasting effect at all. So my mum and dad weren't allowed in to see me very often, especially not overnight. And my dad always related to a story that my family came to pick me up after the pull-through, and I was the only child on the ward, and I was in a cot, and I saw my mum, my dad and my big brother approaching me, and I just turned my back on them, and I wouldn't look at them. And my dad was told, my family were told not to pick me up because I just had the operation, and my dad completely ignored that, lifted me up, walked me up and down the corridors until I actually turned and smiled at him. So, the abandonment part is very, very much affected me throughout my life, because not only did I feel abandoned in many ways, I also abandoned myself, and I might have said that yesterday as well, about all of us abandoning ourselves through the condition. And we abandon ourselves when we are critical against ourselves, when we blame ourselves for our accidents, and we don't live with the unpredictability. We try and change it, and we don't accept anything. It's a hell of a thing. So I'm just referring back to my notes here because I've gone way above. Okay, and I also say that I was also born anxious. And I say that because when you're with a hidden disability, you deal with anxiety every day. And then on top of that, you've got life circumstances, so that adds to your anxiety. Now, my bowel is a lovely bowel, and I love it, but it doesn't always play game. And for me, and I know everybody's different, everybody has their own story, and the adults here have their own story, how they manage their bowel. But for me, growing up, my anxiety made my bowel issues really difficult to live with. So unpredictability is absolutely right. It was unpredictable to a point. My anxiety fueled the unpredictability. So I'm stood here now, and I'm going to share this with you. Never really talked about it openly, but why not? So I was sat in that chair there, and my stomach went over. My first thought was, oh my God, I've got to get to that toilet, because there's no way I'm going to be able to stand up here and talk to you all. It's just going to, I'm just going to have an accident. And in my mind, I'd gone to that place where I'd already had the accident. I was always expecting the worst. And I had to flip it, and I did. I stopped and I thought, no, you know what? This isn't going to happen. I'm going to stand up here and it's going to be fine. It's absolutely going to be fine. And my stomach's in knots, and I might run in a minute, but I am going to be fine. But your children at school will have issues very much like this. Now, school life for me was incredibly difficult. The bullying. And I'm pointing over there because there was an amazing story yesterday that just shook all of us, I think. A story that resonates with us all as well, especially those of us adults with IA. The bullying at school in the 70s was not good. And I think I said before, us adults lived in a society where disability was not a nice word. You weren't open. You were very private with it. And that caused an awful lot of difficulties. So I was bullied. Smelly Smith, I think I remember being called quite a few times. And I remember very much the kids in the playground all coming up towards me hiding away and asking me why I wasn't at school, why was I crying when I came in, why have I got a brown mark on the back of my dress, and why do I smell so bad? And the teachers weren't that brilliant either, because I remember one very well, it affected me for the rest of my life. I was having a bad day, the teacher was having a bad day. She'd obviously had kids in the classroom asking to get out and go to the loo. I was one of them, and she knew that I had to go to the loo quite often. But I was 7, and I put my hand up and said, I need to go, please can I go to the loo? And she said, you've been twice already. I really need to go. If you carry on like this, we're going to have to call the ambulance and take you into hospital. And the class went quiet, and I went quiet. And that was probably one of the last times I asked to go to the loo at school until I reached secondary school. Before I reached secondary school, I had to have a year out of school to be home tutored. I developed school phobia. Didn't want to go to school, didn't want the bullying, didn't want to face any of it. And that year out, my wonderful parents, who I'll talk about in a moment, decided they were going to really boost my self-esteem and make me do things, push me out of my comfort zone in a safe way. And they did just that, and I did grow. And when I was 12, when I went back into secondary school, my life was different. I was different. I thought differently about my disability. And I had lots of friends, and I've got to tell you, I had a whirl of a time at secondary school. Yes, lots of challenges, yes, lots of struggles, which didn't go away, but I managed them differently. The school managed them differently. My mum and dad managed them differently. They didn't keep it such a secret. They came out with it. They told the school. The headmaster was wonderful, placed me in a classroom right next to the toilets. It was just incredible support at my secondary school in the 80s, and I thrived and I survived. And I'm very well known. I'm staying in contact with my friends from Summerby, and they think of me putting on shows and helping people. And went on to college, again, had issues, but I went through them. I changed the struggles to challenges. And I had a really good life up to the age of 23, 24, but we'll get to that in a moment. Because I thought to myself, what do you as parents really want to know? What do the adults really want to know? And I guess, how did the IA affect my relationships might be something you adults and parents alike might want to know about. Yes, it affected my relationships in many ways. I've got a scar that runs across my stomach that is about, I don't know, 1 inch, 2 inches thick. I'm not alone with that. I think there's quite a few of us warriors with a scar. Our lovely scar, who without it we wouldn't have survived. And for many years I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I still find it very difficult. I've also got a scar down here, which is actually faded now. And growing up as a teenager and having relationships with boys and men, no one really knew about my scar, wouldn't ever tell anybody about it really. And then the funny thing is, it affects you in many ways. It makes you feel that you're less than a woman. There are other perfect women out there. Why would anybody want to be in love with me? I'm just, not right. And not only has my stomach got scars on it, but I'm also running to the loo. I'm also unable to have sex sometimes, and definitely not spontaneous sex. Why would anybody want to be in love with me? And in that way, you see, the IA and everything came all about me. I forgot about me. I abandoned me, who I really was. And I'm urging you as parents, especially for girls, and I guess boys as well, to really love their scars, to really see them as their medals. They are brave, brave children. They are warriors. And we need to love our scars. At 23, 24, I went for a routine gynecological scan and was told that I've got 2 wombs, 2 vaginas, and 4 ovaries to match. And that was a complete and utter shock to me. My lifelong dream was to have, at that point, a child. I always wanted a little girl, just one girl, brown eyes, brown hair. And then I was told, in not such a lovely way, that I'd only have 5% chance of falling pregnant, that I would probably, if I did fall pregnant, have 6 to 8 miscarriages before I could carry a child through to long term, and then there might be complications. The child might also have my abnormalities, and they scared me to death. And that led me to choose to marry a man that wasn't right for me, because in my mind, not only did I not look like a woman, but I wasn't able to do what normal women could do, which was give birth to a child, or even have a child. So I chose a man that didn't really want children. He had 2 of his own, and that took pressure off me, but it wasn't the right choice for me. However, I did defy science. I fell pregnant the first time I tried. My daughter fell into the larger womb, and I carried her to 36 weeks. Not only did I have a very, very difficult pregnancy, I bled every month, and that's what science can't really understand, because your hormones, right? You're supposed to bleed once a month, not when you've got 2 wombs. That's a bit different. So I was a bit of an anomaly there, a bit of a dark horse, I remember them people saying to me a lot. And my daughter was born at 36 weeks. I had a caesarean section, and she's got dark hair and dark eyes, by the way. So I got my dream, I got my miracle, and I know how lucky I am. And I know that's not like for everybody here. After that, how did it, yes, last point about how my abnormalities affected me. It wasn't until I was 38, when I was developing really bad nerve pain in my left leg, that they discovered I had a tethered spinal cord. Now, I don't know how much you know of tethered spinal cords, but that means that my spinal cord was actually tethered, that means tied into my spinal column. So as I was growing older, the nerve endings to my bowel, my bladder and my legs were actually fraying. Unlike you, which is probably, most of you who haven't got a tethered spinal cord, your nerve endings are a bit like pieces of elastic, and they would be flexible. As you grew older, they would bend and they'd be fine. But for me, as I was growing older, they were fraying. So nobody ever found out about this tethered spinal cord till I was 38. By which time, when the symptoms were apparent, I was a ticking time bomb, apparently. And I needed urgent surgery to detether the spinal cord, because if I had another flare-up, I could have lost the use of my legs, my bowel, and my bladder. Now, the doctor, the GP, decided that I was a hypochondriac, and that actually the pain would go away if you just took paracetamol. And what on earth are you doing here anyway? And it wasn't until a wonderful physiotherapist read my notes, saw that I'd had an MRI and that there was a tethered spinal cord present, that she urged my doctor to send me to the top specialist in the country to have the surgery, which I did. And I'm here to tell it. I do get pain, and I've got to say that since I've had the operation to detether the spinal cord, things have got a little bit worse. That plus the menopause, because I am 50, I think the condition does make our bowels different, okay? Whether you've got a disability or not, I think that's the case. The fecal transit is a lot faster for me now. So when I need to go, I'm going to drop this and run, literally, and you're all going to understand, because you know what it is. Okay, so that's how it sort of affected me. 5 minutes. Okay. This is what I really want to talk about. Okay. Oh, I just have to say that I'm a bit gushy here, that I did make some wrong choices, love-wise, but I've now made the right choice, and I've met a man who really does understand, who is very supportive, very caring, and very loving. Yes, very quickly. I might just ask for 3 more minutes on top, because what happened yesterday when we had the psychologists here and the mental health team here, they sort of preempted me. So there were some wonderful words, very strong words up on the board yesterday. The 2 banners, one was very positive, the other one had very difficult, painful words on them. And what I wanted to do today, and I'm going to cut it short, and I'm going to go to the end, I promise, was I wanted to show you how I've actually flipped those words. But they did it for us. Yesterday was amazing. So I sat at this table and we were talking about isolation and feeling alone, and for many of us it was the first time we'd actually explored it and thought about it, and these wonderful psychologists said that they did it, they flipped it for us. What were the solutions, what were the outcomes, and it was great. And I sort of just want to touch on that briefly. It wasn't the disabilities that affected me all my life.
The batteries might have died, but they're on the table.
It's the way that I've thought about my disability. And that's the most important thing. How we define ourselves, how we think about us, and the challenges that are presented to us. If we can flip the negative, the painful, uncomfortable emotions to a more acceptable, more sweet-smelling, lovely emotion, we can reframe the way we think. And the only way we think in the way that we do, and I'm going to talk to us adults now, is because of the challenges that we've faced. And I've got to say, the one thing that I know all of us adults, including Australia, is that we are not only brave, we're not only resilient, but we can cope.
We've learned to cope, and your children will learn to cope. And that, to me, is one of the most important things, is that we know we can cope. We don't have to expect the worst. We do expect the worst because nature has it that we live with unpredictability. But we can train ourselves to expect the best, and we can train ourselves to just always flip and see the struggles as a challenge, which your beautiful, brave children will overcome. They will find their way. Okay, so just very quickly, this is the bit I'm really passionate about. Listen. Yeah. Okay, so yesterday I did mention when I stood up about the society that Greg and the other adults here grew up in, and they were difficult, but times have changed, thank goodness. And thanks to events like these, and to all of you brave souls who've overcome their own shame, to talk openly and very honestly about their conditions, and it's some for the very first time. We now live in a more open and understanding society. And being open about your child's condition and difficulties at school will help him or her at some point. And open discussions do need to happen within the school classroom in a sensitive way that may help your child to feel differently about themselves, but more importantly will educate other children. Now, I think this should happen earlier on in the school life, so primary school, nursery school, primary school is more difficult when it comes to junior and secondary school. That's a different story. And I'm sure that if the children in my school life had known about my difficulties, my life might have been a lot different. So, this is what I'm passionate about. How many of your children want to be superheroes? I know one does. And we spoke about that. Okay, so, superheroes, what do they do? What do they do in the Marvel films? They hide their superpower. So, your children, me, us as adults, have hidden our superpower, our disability. Not just our disability, our superpower as in being resilient, brave, being able to cope. And in the Marvel films, what happens? So they hide their disability, they hide their superpower until they learn to manage it, until they feel in control of it. And then they come out into the world, they save people, their superpower is completely known to everyone, and they do good in the world. And I'm sort of wanting you to do that for your kids. And I want us as adults to think of ourselves as superheroes too. And I think we're more powerful when we're honest, open and vulnerable to people who want to listen. I'm not saying everybody will take, we have to be careful who we talk about. To some people it's not a good thing. But we need to put on our capes, and we need to be superheroes, and you need to let your kids be superheroes, and you're also superheroes. Parents are superheroes. And that's it. Thank you.